And good morning to those of you who might be joining us from the central portion of the United States or the west coast of the United States. I should also say maybe good afternoon or good evening to those of you who might be joining us from other parts around the world. We have gentlemen joining us from Rio de Janeiro today, and I also know we have some attendees joining us from the UK and Australia as well. So welcome everyone to our presentation today. This is part 3 of our Iron Condor presentation, and today we're going to be reviewing using the Power Options tools for Iron Condor trading for self-directed options investors. Most of this presentation is going to focus on the ideas and concepts that were released or written in our newest addition to the Power Options library, the Iron Condor book, Neutral Strategy for Uncommon Profit. We're going to be talking about that. In addition to showing how to use the Power Options tools for the Iron Condor trading, we'll also talk a little bit towards the end of the presentation about some of our services at the advisory newsletter service that we offer, Power Options Applied, the different trade folios we offer for Iron Condors, as well as covered calls and some collar positions as well, even double diagonals, as a matter of fact, which are a variation of the Iron Condor presentation. During this presentation, you are free to ask questions. I do have Mr. Phillips, who's going to be our co-presenter today, and Greg Zerenner, the Vice President of Power Options and President of Power Options Applied, helping with the questions. But what I would ask is that if you can hold your questions until the end of the presentation. I'm going to try to leave 10 or 15 minutes at the end of the presentation. And this way, when you ask the questions during that question and answer portion at the end of the presentation, everyone online can get benefit of the question. We can even start a little discussion about the questions that are being posed. So if you can, hold your questions until the end of the presentation. Most likely I will cover your question during the presentation if I haven't gotten to that point yet. But if you do have a question, feel free to go ahead and post it, and Greg or Mr. Phillips will be more than happy to help you out. All right, well, we're just a little bit past 12 noon Eastern Time. I just wanted to say hello first and get everyone up to speed. Let's go ahead and begin. I mentioned, of course, that today's presentation we are discussing using the Power Options tools for the Iron Condor strategy, but most of the concepts that we're going to be focusing on today are those discussed in our newest edition of the Power Options library, the Iron Condor book, Neutral Strategy for Uncommon Profit. This was written by Mike Phillips and Ernie Zerenner. And this book describes sort of Mike Phillips and Ernie's approach to what they've been using in the successful trade folios at Power Options Applied over the past couple of years. So we're going to be going through those, the concepts that are discussed in that book, to show how to use the Power Options tools. Okay. Now, before we go any further, I just want to ask a quick poll, get to know everyone a little bit better here. And what I'd like to know is just very simply, what is your experience or interest in our newest Iron Condor book? Is this the first time you've heard about the new Iron Condor book? Are you thinking of purchasing our newest Iron Condor book? Have you already purchased the Iron Condor book and are currently reading it? Or have you read the Iron Condor book already and are currently applying the techniques that were discussed in that text? We're going to leave this poll open for a little bit here. Okay. All right, we've got most of our votes in. I want to thank everyone for voting so quickly. I'm going to leave this open for another 15 or 20 seconds here, give everyone a chance to vote. All right, fantastic. Okay, let me go ahead, 10 more seconds, and then I'll go ahead and close the poll. All right, let's go ahead and close that down. I'll share the results with everyone. So 13% of you, this is the first time that you've heard about the new Iron Condor book. 46% have probably joined us for presentation part 1 and part 2 of the Iron Condor presentation, or thinking of purchasing the Iron Condor book. 30% have already purchased it, thank you, and are currently reading. And we have 11% who have read the book and are currently applying the techniques in their account, and that's fantastic. Let's go ahead and hide those results. Go back to our main screen here. Now, briefly, what I want to review for those 13% of you, this is the first time that you've heard about it, or those of you thinking about purchasing the Iron Condor book, just review quickly the table of contents. Chapter 1, of course, is general introduction. And Chapter 2, Mike Phillips and Ernie discuss the theory behind the Iron Condor position. Chapter 3, they discuss selecting the right security, and we're going to discuss that as well today, what their views are of looking for the right positions to enter, the right underlying security, I should say. Chapter 4 is finding Iron Condor positions. Chapter 5 discusses their approaches to the management of the Iron Condor techniques. Chapter 6 discusses the actual results from the different trade folios that use the Iron Condor strategy at Power Options Applied. And Chapter 7 discusses some of the Iron Condor variations, such as double diagonal spreads and iron butterflies. And of course, Chapter 8 is the review. For those of you that might not have caught up with us yet with the Iron Condor presentation Part 1, Part 1, which was a few weeks ago, we reviewed the introduction from Chapter 1, the theory behind the Iron Condor positions from Chapter 2, and also we touched a little bit upon the actual results from Chapter 6 and Chapter 7, some of the variations of the double diagonals and the iron butterflies. The presentation Part 2 of our Iron Condor presentation discussed selecting the right securities. We went a little bit in depth on that. Chapter 5 touched on the management of the Iron Condors, and of course going over the review a little bit. Those are available for you. The archive presentations will show you later on where you can get to those. Now today what we're going to discuss in Part 3 is tools for self-directed Iron Condor investors. We're going to focus on Chapter 4, finding the Iron Condor positions using the patented Power Options suite of tools. And we're also going to go over Chapter 5 using the Power Options tools for the management of the Iron Condor position. And we'll also do a little bit of review of what we discussed during the presentation, of course, and from presentations Part 1 and Part 2. Now, my name is Michael Chupka. I am the Director of Education here at Power Options. My job consists of mainly handling all of the coaching sessions and a lot of education on the Power Options website. I have co-authored 2 option books, one on naked puts and one on protective option strategies. I do have the privilege of working closely with both Ernie and Mike Phillips to get Mike Phillips' ideas and concepts of the Iron Condor strategy and the other strategies he trades as well. Now, at Power Options, we do support over 23 different strategies. I am versed in all 23 strategies on the site, but there are certain positions that I don't trade, as they simply do not match my personal risk-reward tolerance. These include certain things such as short straddles, short strangles, even iron butterflies, which are a variation of iron condors. I don't approve of the, I don't like, I should say, the risk-reward valuations that are used, that are available for the iron butterflies. I also don't trade naked calls. Now, joining me today, my co-presenter is Mike Phillips. Good morning, or good afternoon, I should say. Mike, how are you today?
Good morning. I'm fine. Thank you.
Excellent. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do here for the Power Financial Group, for Power Options and Power Options Applied?
I'm the head analyst for Power Options Applied, and my background is more in engineering. The last few years it's been in the financial area. I traded covered calls for a number of years before I began to work here, and really liked the strategy, and then of course after starting to work here we got more into the Iron Condor and the applications of the Iron Condor. It's a really nice complement strategy to other strategies.
And one of the things we discussed in the, I believe it was Part 2 of the presentation, is that if you're interested in doing the Iron Condor positions, for example, you really only want to be using about 20 to 25% of your total portfolio value to be trading Iron Condors. Is that correct?
Well, that would be the maximum.
Maximum.
You'd certainly do it for less, but we would not recommend going more than, about 20%.
Okay. So that's what you meant by the good complement strategy to the core positions you might be holding in your account or mutual funds, for example.
Exactly.
Fantastic. All right. Now let's just move on. We want to give a brief review of what is Power Options for those of you who might not be familiar with it. Power Options is a patented suite of search and analysis tools that were designed for self-directed options investors. Power Options was created about 12 years ago by Ernie Zerenner and his partner. These patented tools allow you to search across the universe of options in less than a second in over 23 different strategies. The tool is going to allow you to isolate only those positions that match your personal risk-reward tolerance in a given strategy. once you've identified those positions, you'll be able to quickly compare the risk versus reward on the positions, do further research and analysis with just one click, and figure out which position best suits your expectations and your goals for the next coming month or for the strategy itself. In addition to that, we also have a powerful set of portfolio tools which will help you paper trade, track, and manage your positions. We're going to be going over that today, as well as viewing potential rollout opportunities. So if I'm tracking an Iron Condor position and one of my alerts has been triggered, I'll be able to link to an analysis page that will show me potential rollout opportunities or adjustments I could make on that Iron Condor. We're going to show you some of those examples today too. The adjustments that are listed, of course, in the analysis screen when we're reviewing the portfolio are based on the concepts discussed in the Iron Condor book, what Mike Phillips has used and been able to use successfully in the Iron Condor trade folios at Power Options Applied. In addition to that, Power Options also supplies various countless educational articles and help pages on all the strategies, of course, including the Iron Condor. And this is a little bit outdated. It's really, we've been, I think, in business over 12 years now, but with the experience of Mike Phillips, Ernie, Greg, myself, and the other staff members, we have many, many more years of combined trading experience. Now, before we go directly into tools, I just want to launch another poll. And what I would like to know is, how do you currently identify Iron Condor positions? Do you use a basic option chain to manually build the four-leg strategy? Have you created your own Excel spreadsheet or have a personal spreadsheet that you use? Do you use your brokerage tools to build positions? Or do you use a third-party analysis software program to help you identify Iron Condors other than Power Options? So just let us know how you are currently identifying the Iron Condor positions or even other strategies that you're using right now. I'm going to leave this poll open for about a minute. We've got about 50% of our votes in right now. Thank you for voting so quickly. And this is a very interesting mix here. All right, we've got a lot of our votes in, and then the poll's been open for about a minute, so I'm going to leave it open for another 10 seconds, and then I'll close the poll. About another 5 seconds here, so get those last votes in. All right, let's go ahead and close the poll, and I want to share the results with everyone, and this is actually a little bit different than what I thought I was going to see. 31% of our attendees are using a basic option chain just to manually build the four-legged Iron Condor positions. I find that interesting. That seems very time-consuming to me, looking at each of the individual legs there, trying to build the position manually, of course, and then looking at the probabilities and trying to identify the probabilities. 11% are using their own Excel spreadsheet or personal spreadsheet. 20% use the brokerage tools to build their positions. You might be using Thinkorswim or Options Express, for example. 16% are using a third-party analysis software. I didn't realize that was a spelling error there. I missed that. I'm sorry. And 22% are currently using Power Options. All right. Well, what this presentation is really going to benefit those of you who are using a basic option chain is what we're going to show now. Let me just go ahead and hide the results, and let's navigate over to the Power Options suite of tools. As I mentioned earlier, these patented suite of tools are going to allow you to identify positions in over 23 different strategies. Of course, today we're only going to focus on the Iron Condor position. In less than a second to just match your specific criteria. Now, Mike, when we discussed in part 2 about selecting the right strategy, we reviewed the section in the text that you wrote with Ernie that described why you prefer to just use the indexes and maybe even the ETFs rather than using stocks for Iron Condor positions.
That's correct, yes. And stocks are too volatile. They can make a big jump. We detail that in the webinar and also in the book. And so especially for trades that are special margin, if a stock were to make a large movement, up or down, you could basically lose, almost all of your invested capital, except minus, initial net credit.
That's right.
So that's why we like to stick more with ETFs and indexes. And ETFs or indexes are fine for Iron Condors. We like the indexes because one, there's some tax advantages that you can receive for trading spreads on broad-based indexes, and the other reason is that we found that we have lower brokerage costs if we trade the indexes as opposed to the ETFs, just because we don't have to trade as many contracts, because the brokers they try to keep the price of the ETF, between or less than $100, and so just basically that causes you to require more contracts, whereas the indexes are, up in the 500 to 1,000 range, and they don't try to keep the price under 100, so they don't need as many contracts.
And one thing I'm going to show when we get to the portfolio tools is a position that was found during one of our earlier presentations, an Iron Condor position for May expiration on Goldman Sachs, and where that stands right now. And that just sort of illustrates why it's more dangerous to trade the stocks, other than the advantages you mentioned of the tax advantage, of course, and the special margin requirements, but why the stocks are so much more volatile and how they can get you into trouble. And we'll showcase that as well. All right, so when we first log on to the Power Options tools, what we want to do is just click on the Strategy tab to enter in the Tools section for that particular strategy. So we just click on Iron Condor, and this will give us access to the main tools. You see we have a submenu underneath the main tab. We have our search. That's the patented Smart Search Excel tool, where we can scan the entire universe of options to identify positions. We also have a sample searches section, which has some pre-themed searches. If you just have a stock, such as you are trying to research maybe just Iron Condors on Goldman Sachs, for example, or you're looking at Iron Condors on the Russell 2000 or SPX, you can utilize the Search by Symbol tool. There's also a backtest tool that you can use, and you can link to the Custom Spreads tool here, which will give you a ability to build your own spread just by pointing and clicking the different ones, then analyzing the profit and loss charts for that particular stock. And we'll take a look at that when we review the profit and loss chart from the main search page. You also have your basic overview pod here that just gives you some main bullet points of the Iron Condor position. You get a little bit more in-depth information going to the Iron Condor strategy help page, links to, if you wanted further information, of course, of the Iron Condor trade folios at Power Options Applied. You can link to that too in the overview section. We also have the listing for the Iron Condor book. And then, of course, underneath of that, you also have the Tools pod, where you can also access the basic tools. Our Search tool, again, the patented Smart Search Excel, the sample searches, Search by Symbol, and so forth. When we're starting off looking at for new Iron Condor positions, we're going to start off either in the search screen or the sample searches. Now, we do have some pre-themed searches set up, the initial value search set up for you as a default to use as a stepping stone in the main search screen. But to follow sort of the ideas and the concepts that have worked for Mike Phillips and Ernie over the past several years, what we're going to want to do is when we go into the Iron Condor tab, we're going to want to click on the Sample Searches screen. And by the way, one thing I forgot to mention, if you log on to your trial account or your subscription account and you do not see the Iron Condor tab as one of your available tabs, simply click on the Other Strategies tab over here on the far right, and you'll be able to pick and choose which strategies you want to view. All right, so from the Iron Condor section, I want to go into Sample Searches first. And the reason why I want to go here is we have a default search set up in the sample search screen for index and ETF Iron Condors. These results are sorted by the highest probability. We're going 45 days out in time, and we're limiting the risk to be less than 25 points on the spread. And we want to use this as a stepping stone to create our own personal search. But to access the results, the top 20 results that would have matched that default search, we simply click on Index and ETF Iron Condors, and this will open up our sample searches screen with the different listed positions that match that default criteria. Now you notice here, as Mr. Phillips told us a little while ago when we were reviewing some of the earlier presentations, the results here are mostly the broad-based indexes, and these are the ones that have that tax advantage as well as the special margin. You get those advantages of those types of benefits when looking at the broad-based indexes. So we have the NASDAQ 100, $NDX. We've got the Russell in here as well. I've got a couple S&P 500 trades listed as well. And this shows us the setup for the position. We're showing the expiration date for our options, the May expiration, 29 days out in time. We've got our put strikes here. We're going to buy the 1825 put, sell the 1850. Here are our current prices. And we'd also combine that with a bear call spread by selling the 2175 call and buying the 2200 call. And we have the two premiums listed as well. As the default settings, we also have set the lower break-even and the upper break-even at expiration for this particular Iron Condor position. Our total net credit would be 65 cents right now, and this is based on the natural bid and the natural ask for the puts and calls that we'd be selling or buying. And then our calculated percentage return and our probability between. This is the theoretical probability that the stock would remain below the short call strike price and above the short put strike price on May expiration. And of course, we also show the maximum risk. This is the difference in the strike prices, the maximum difference in the strike prices minus the net credit. Now, this 2.7% return might seem a little bit low to your personal goals for trading Iron Condors, but remember, this particular themed search is sorting by the highest probability. So naturally, if I'm looking for a position that has a highest probability between, I'm going to have to sacrifice some return. I can't expect to find Iron Condors on the indexes that have a 95% probability between, but are still offering a net credit of maybe $2 or a percentage return of 7 or 8%. If they are out there, this tool will help you find them, but you typically won't see those kind of positions. They just don't exist. If it was that easy, then everyone would be trading Iron Condors. There's a little bit more art and a little bit more research that we need to go into. Okay? Now, how are these positions identified? Let's simply scroll down below the listed trades, and we'll take a look at the parameter field. Now, the parameter field is really the engine that drives the search results. These default searches, as I mentioned, you want to use as a stepping stone to create your own personal search. This pre-themed search for the Iron Condor positions is based on some of the concepts that are discussed in the Iron Condor book. You see here that we're looking for all months to expiration, but we're limiting it to be less than 45 days out in time. And some of you might like to go 2 months out in time, for example. You might trade Iron Condors that are 60 days out in time. If that is your preference, all you'd have to do is simply click in that field and make the adjustment. So now we're going to force it to look for all months to expiration that are between 0 to 60 days. It's possible we might see some June expirations when we rerun this search. In addition to that, down here at the bottom, you see that we're forcing the positions to be at least 5% out of the money or more. So the short call and the short put, the options that would reveal our obligation, have to be at least 5% out of the money or more. One of the other criteria that we have here, this is really important, as Mike Phillips discussed, for the special margin requirement, we have a checkbox here we've selected to only look for Iron Condors that have the same margin on both the bull put credit spread side and the bear call credit spread side. This allows you to have that special margin rule at most brokers. Isn't that right, Mr. Phillips?
At select brokers, and this enables you to, like double your return over an Iron Condor that is not special margin.
And we showed that, I believe it was in presentation part 1, wasn't it, where we discussed the same spread but with the special requirement and without, and how that cut the return in half there.
Yes.
All right. So some of the other fields that you can select, of course, is your percentage return. We just have a basic default search here. We're looking for at least 1% or more. But of course, if your requirement was you don't want to see Iron Condor trades unless they offer a 2.5% return, you just simply put that into the field. We have a minimum value for total net credit. Again, if you wanted a higher value, just plug that in. One of the things that is discussed, I'll give it a little bit away for free, but one of the things discussed in the Iron Condor book is that Mike Phillips prefers to look for Iron Condor positions on the broad-based indexes that have an open interest of at least 100 contracts on all four options. So here I have the open interest for the buy put, the sell call, and buy call. So I can just simply plug in a minimum open interest for each of the four legs of at least 100. You can also put in criteria for things such as the minimum option bid price for the sell put or for the sell call. If you wanted to view the implied volatility ratio between the puts, the sell option implied volatility divided by the buy option implied volatility, or for the calls. We also have filters for Black-Scholes ratios. And further down you also have for the delta as well. And two of the other important criteria is our percent maximum risk. Now the maximum risk for an Iron Condor position is defined as the difference in the strike prices on one spread or the other, the larger spread. Since we told the system that we just want to see the same margin on both spreads, that will be equal. But it's the difference in the strike prices of the bear call or the bull put minus the net credit. We've limited this search to have a maximum risk of less than 25. As you'll find when you get into the larger price, broader based indexes such as SPX, they will only have 25-point strike differences when you get above, I believe, 1,500 or so. So most of the SPX trades that were on that search result had that maximum risk between 25 points. But if you wanted to have a lower risk of only 15 points, just click in that field again and change it based on what you'd want to see. One of our other filters, of course, is that percent probability between. We're using a basic probability here of 65% or more, so we're only seeing positions that have a theoretical probability of 65% that they will be above the short put strike price or below the short call strike price at or on expiration. Now over on the right-hand side, there are a lot of criteria you can use for the stocks, but as I scroll further down, you see the reason why we selected this default search is down at the bottom in the recommended list section. We've selected the company list for just indexes, ETFs, and holders. So we're only screening against those securities, again, based on the concepts discussed in the Iron Condor book and what Mike Phillips and Ernie prefer to use. So I don't really need to use a lot of the criteria over here because this mostly relates to stock fundamentals, earnings per share growth, price per earnings, broker recommendation, percent dividend yield, for example. However, you could put in filters, I should say, if you wanted to look specifically at beta or historical volatility, rather. You won't have any market cap, of course. But we do have some technical indicators as well, the Bollinger Band ranges and the RSI. One of the filters that we prefer to use for simplicity is this percent out of the money range. On the filters, if you don't know what a particular criteria means, you can simply hover over that link by the filter, and it'll give you a pop-up definition for that particular filter. Now, the out-of-the-money range refers to basically where is the underlying security price right now compared to the short put strike price and the short call strike price. By forcing a limit here for the percent out-of-the-money range to be between 40 and 60, we're only looking for positions where right now, in addition to having a probability between of 65% or more, where the current underlying price is just about halfway between the short call and the short put. You can adjust this if you want it to be more biased towards the call side. You might want to look for a percent out of the money range greater than 60, or if you want it to be biased where your underlying security is closer to the put side, you might look for a percent out of the money range less than 40. But it's pretty good to start off with a mid-range here, looking for positions where the underlying security of the index is right between the short put and the short call strike price, around a 50% range. Once you've made some of your adjustments, we changed the open interest, we made some adjustments to that percentage return as well. We'll just simply scroll down to the bottom here and click Submit these settings. And what this is going to scroll through the entire universe of options. We basically build about 1.8 million Iron Condor positions every 20 minutes, roughly every 15 to 20 minutes. Now we're actually going to be linked over into the Smart Search results. And we're in the Smart Search screen now because we adjusted the sample search to make this more akin to what we would want to see, what best matches our personal risk-reward ratio. I'm still sorting by the highest probability between, but if I wanted to, I could change that field at the top and I could sort by the highest percentage return, for example. I could sort by the highest total net credit. However you want to sort the results, you can select directly from that particular field. All right? Okay. So here are our results again. When we look at the top of the screen, I still believe we have pretty much close to that same initial position we were looking at top. We've got our 90.9% probability between and a percentage return of 2.9%. Now, if you wanted, after you've made your changes and you like the results that came up, you like the listing of the results, you can simply save your search. And to do that, I'll simply click Save here at the top of the screen, and then it'll prompt me to enter in a search name and a description. So for our search name, we'll just go ahead and put in the Iron Condor adjusted search. And for a basic description, we'll say this is based on the sample search for ETFs, or for indexes, I should say. Now once I click Save this search, it's going to rerun the search for me. And up at the top of the screen, now, at the top of the parameter field, we'll see that that listing is now available in our search settings saved as. And if I click the drop-down menu there, I'll always be able to toggle between the initial values search and our Iron Condor adjusted search saved on my account. Until I delete those, I can't delete the default search here in the Smart Search tool, but until I delete that other search that we just saved, it will always be available there for me to toggle between. So I can look at the initial value search or this search. I can always go back into the sample searches and review those two sample searches as well, the higher price securities and, of course, the index and ETF search. Now, earlier during our second poll, when I asked how do you identify positions, one of our longtime clients, Emmett, wrote in. He said he likes to use the stock chart. Well, what we've done here is we've narrowed down the universe of options to just a few Iron Condors that match our personal criteria. But I'm probably not going to go ahead and jump right into the first position that matched my results. I want to do some further research and analysis on that position as well. And just as Emmett mentioned when he put in that question for the poll, the first thing I'll do, over on the left-hand side here, we'll click that More Information button, and I can go ahead and select Stock Chart. I can take a look at the one-year snapshot, or we can link to Big Charts. Now, Big Charts is a powerful tool to use. It's a free charting service, and you can customize your time frame over here on the left when you're reviewing Big Charts. It pulls up the basic one-year chart, but I could select to view the 6-month chart, for example, or I could look at the 3-month chart. You can also look at the frequency if you wanted to compare daily or weekly. And there's also other indicators that you can look at. You can compare it to other indexes. We're looking at the NASDAQ, so here I could compare it to other indexes. And in addition to that, on the left-hand side, we could look at various indicators as well. So you can customize this screen how you would like to view it for analyzing your chart. And we're not going to go into the specifics of what to look at here. That's sort of discussed in the book. Remember, the Iron Condor is a neutral strategy. What we're really trying to focus on, as discussed, of course, in the book, is that higher probability between and a return that matches your basic goals. And, of course, that's what this Smart Search tool, linking from the sample searches or using the Smart Search tool, really allows you to do. Rather than building a multitude of Iron Condor positions using an option chain and then doing the calculations by hand, we told the system to show me only these Iron Condor positions that match these specific requirements. And we can go through and list specifically what we want to see for return, minimum net credit, option volume, open interest. We prefer to use the indexes and ETFs, but you could also just look at higher price stocks. Remember, one of those other sample searches we saw was looking just for a default search on higher price securities. So you can view that as well. It's all based on what you want to look for, but we recommend starting off using that index and ETF sample search, making the adjustments based on what you'd want to see for probability, percentage return, minimum net credit. Keep that box checked, remember, for the same margin on both sides of the spread so you can take advantage of that special margin requirement. In addition to looking at the stock chart naturally, after we've identified some of the Iron Condors that match our criteria, you can review the company information. It's really not important on the indexes so much, but you might want to do a little bit more research there. That's really important when you're doing the stocks, of course, and the maybe the ETFs to get a better view of the profile of what the ETF is actually covering. you can link to calculator tools if you wanted to simulate what the position or the return might be if you got different prices on the bid and ask spread of the puts that you're buying or selling or the calls that you're buying or selling. You can link to those calculator tools there to get a view of what your percentage return would be, including your commissions, for example, or if you got a different price as well. If I wanted to compare, you see here, let me just click off that very quickly. There we go. You see that we do have several Iron Condors in a row listed here for NASDAQ, and we've got a couple on the Russell 2000, for example. But let's say I wanted to view some of the potential, view the different combinations of just the Russell 2000 index or just the NASDAQ on one screen. Well, there's two ways to do that. One, from the More Information menu, I can link to the Search by Symbol tool. I'll just do that very quickly. And what the Search by Symbol tool will do is show me just the various Iron Condor combinations on that index. So I pulled up my first result that had the highest probability. I saw the listed percentage return, and then I linked over to the stock chart, and I just looked at the recent chart. Now what I can do is, on this page, I can see a variety of different Iron Condor positions in descending order from probability. So we do have a Iron Condor available that has a 95.3% probability, but look at the return. It's a 15-cent net credit or a 0.6% return. My minimum requirement, remember, was at least 2%, so I'm going to start focusing on this one here that has the 92.3% probability between and a percentage return of greater than 2%. But this allows me to compare the different risk and rewards and the probabilities for my Iron Condors just one security at a time. However, a better way, in my opinion, because there are so many combinations on each of the broad-based index. I mean, we scroll through this list and we see that we're still going. We have higher returns. We've got high net credits and low probabilities, some things that don't make any sense down here at the bottom at all, Iron Condors that we'd never want to trade. But to better filter that, what I want to do is let me close out the Search by Symbol tool here, and let's go back to our main search screen. And one of the filters I can use is let me scroll down to the bottom of the parameter field here. Down at the very bottom, underneath where I can select the earnings date or the ex-dividend date, I have a Search by Symbol field. So if I'm interested in those NASDAQ Iron Condors, but I want to have the ability to better filter between them, just down here in our parameter field, we'll put in a stock symbol for $NDX. On power options, all of our broad-based indexes are preceded by the $. And then we'll just go ahead and click Submit again. It's going to keep the same criteria, that 5% out of the money on one side or the other, probability between greater than 65, but now we're just going to see all of the NASDAQ positions. So we've limited this down, but the benefit of using the Smart Search tool now to filter on the NASDAQs rather than the Search by Symbol is I can say, okay, well, what if I want to see just those positions that have a probability of greater than 75%. I want to look for the higher probability rather than the higher return. Let me just change that and now filter these results further for $NDX for the NASDAQ and see which Iron Condors have that higher probability. Okay, so now we've taken it down to only 9 positions that are 60 days out in time, are offering us a return of at least 2.5% and have a probability between of greater than 75%, in addition to matching our other requirements for the margin on the same sides, and of course for the probability between. Okay, so you can customize this any way you want to identify only those positions that match what you're specifically looking for, and rather than building combinations one at a time on an option chain, I'm able to do this just by making a few adjustments, hitting the Submit button, and in less than a second I'm seeing only those results that match what I want to see. All right. Now we take our first result. One of the second to last things I'll do before deciding to place the trade is I'm going to want to go ahead and take a look at the profit and loss chart. And the profit and loss chart, this will link us also over to the Search by Symbol tool as well, or well, I'm sorry, what's called the Custom Spread tool. Now here's our Iron Condor position. And you see we do have, as Mike mentioned earlier, this sort of cut down the return. It looks like we only have a 1.4% return as opposed to what we saw as a 2.9% return in the search screen. This is because on the Custom Spread tool here, it's looking at both sides. It's not including the special margin. So we can see how this was cut down in half if we weren't taking advantage of the special margin requirements. We're showing here our maximum risk on the position. The difference in the strike price is at 25 points minus the net credit we receive. So we have a maximum risk of about $2,430. It's based on one contract, and our maximum profit is $70. One of the unique features about this tool is we can now run what-if scenarios down here at the bottom. See below the listed profit and loss chart, we have the availability to put in our expected stock price and our expected date. So what if I was concerned, we looked at our position, we are selling the 1875 put and buying the 1850, and at the same time we were going to sell the 2200 call and buy the 2225 call as well. What if I was concerned that the stock might jump up, or the index, I'm sorry, might jump up to 2150, let's say by the end of April, on April 29th, for example? Well, we'll just put in my expected stock price, my target date. We'll go ahead and hit calculate. And down here at the bottom, the chart was redrawn for us. This red line, which originally showed us the profit and loss at the halfway point of the position, is now showing us the profit and loss chart on April 29th using the Black-Scholes pricing model. Down below, we have the numbers calculated for us. We show that we could close our position, our put side here for very low value because the stock is closer to the call strike price, but we'd have a high buyback cost on our short call position. We'd be able to minimize that by selling potentially the long call, about $542, but this would still result in a loss, theoretically, of $237. Now, if we scroll back up, we see that that's reduced from our maximum risk, but it's still a risk that you might not be willing to take if the stock hit that target price. Of course, you can reverse it as well. If I wanted to see what would happen if the stock dropped down to about $1,900, we would just plug that in and hit calculate, and that would show us what the position would look like if it got closer to our put strike price on our target date. Now, for those of you that are building your positions one at a time using a basic option chain, when we linked to the profit and loss chart, that took us here to the custom spread tool. Up at the top, you see the basic information that we entered over from the Smart Search screen. We have the individual contracts, the natural bid and the natural ask of the options that were listed for us that matched our criteria. But if I wanted to make simple adjustments and view the profit and loss chart, I can do that with a few simple clicks. Let's say, for example, that I wanted to increase my risk by moving my short put and my short call closer to the current security price. We know that wouldn't match my criteria for the probability between, for example, but with one click I could simply do that. Instead of the 1875 put, let's say I wanted to see what this position would look like if I sold the 1900 put, and instead of the 2200 call, what this position would look like if I sold maybe the 2175. Well, what I'll do is simply clear out the two short positions. This is May expiration. I want to keep them in the same month. So I'll click View Options up here at the top. I'll click my May drop-down menu. It's going to pull up all of the available options, but now in the first available field that I cleared out, I want to go ahead and see what the 1900 strike put would look like. So I'll just click that link and it'll tell me that it's added. And I wanted to look at the 2175 call, so I just click that as well. Scroll back down to the bottom here in my entry fields. A little bit too far, apologize for that. There we go. And we see here that we've added our May 1900 put. Let me just change that to sell. Put in just one contract for now. Again, if you wanted to evaluate the monetary values using more than one contract, for example, if you wanted to evaluate it using 10 contracts, 15, you could just plug that into the top of the screen as well. I'm not going to put in the prices. Since I selected to sell both of these options, it's just going to grab the natural bid price. So now we just click Submit, and we'll get a view of what our new Iron Condor would look like if we used the different strikes. So just with the simple clicks here, rather than using a chain and building it one at a time to see what my net credit would be and build it by hand, we've just gone ahead and made some adjustments. We see our new adjusted return based on both strikes, not based on, or both difference in strike prices, not special margin, our new maximum profit, of course, and the maximum risk. And again, we could scroll down to the bottom and simulate what this would look like if the stock was trading at a certain price on a selected target date. So the custom spread tool, the profit and loss chart here, is very powerful to use when the last step of evaluating your positions. evaluating what-if scenarios. And for those of you that mentioned that you were using just a basic option chain, I think this tool is a little bit more useful because it gives you a graphical interpretation directly of what your position would look like, your maximum return, and the maximum risk amount. Okay. Now, the last step, let me close our analysis screen. Let's go back to the main search page there. We still have our results in NDX that we were reviewing. Okay. And now, I've put in my criteria. I've identified just the positions that I wanted to see. Remember, we want to start off with that sample searches screen and use that Iron Condor and ETF default search as a stepping stone. We've done our further research. We looked at the stock chart. We might look at some of the company information. You could further analyze the detail on the short put or the long put or the short call and the long call as well. We ran our what-if scenarios, and using the stock filter screen here, we narrowed it down to just looking at the NASDAQ positions that matched our criteria. Now, from Power Options, what I can do is I can access the broker link. If you're trading with Options Express or Brokers Express, the broker link allows you to link this trade directly to the trading platform, so you don't have to enter everything in manually. It will link all of the 4-leg options over for you. It's a great time saver. However, if you're using a excuse me, if you're using a different broker, that's perfectly fine too. What you might do is go ahead and place your trade with your broker. But after you've placed the trade, you want to come back to Power Options. And from this More Information button, there's one last step which is really going to help you as you're managing the position. Now, before we take a look at that, what I'd like to know is I'm going to ask another poll here. And I want to know right now, how are you tracking your current Iron Condor positions? Are you simply reviewing the gain or loss on each leg with your brokers? Are you looking at a basic option chain day by day to see the prices? Are you using an Excel spreadsheet that you put together to track your positions? Are you using a third-party analysis software other than Power Options? Or are you currently using the Power Options tools to track your positions? So just let me know what you're using right now after you've entered the trade, how you track the position, view your liquidation gain and loss. All right. Let's have the poll open here for about 45 seconds. I'm just going to leave it open for another 10 seconds here. We've got most of our votes in. Again, I appreciate everyone coming in so quickly. All right. Let's go ahead and close that poll. I'm going to share the results with everyone. All right. So 27% of our attendees are reviewing the gain or loss on each leg using their broker. Maybe have some limits set on each one. If there's shows a certain percentage gain or certain percentage loss on each leg, and then you try to manage them individually. 16% of you are just using the basic option chain day by day. 9% have your own Excel spreadsheet that you use. 38% of you, that's the winner it looks like, are using a third-party analysis software other than Power Options. Okay, and 9% of you are currently using the Power Options portfolio tools to manage your Iron Condor positions. All right, well, let me go ahead and hide that. And what I want to do now, of course, let me show you how we use the Power Options tools to track our positions. Now that I've identified the position that matches what I want to see, done my research and analysis, reviewed my weather scenarios. Yes?
Before you go on, we had one question about the Greeks and other parameters and how you would add that to the display. You might want to cover that.
Oh, okay. Well, any of the criteria that you can use, that you can screen and filter by down here at the bottom. We discussed beta, of course. You have the implied volatility and the implied volatility ratios, the delta ratio for the puts and the calls, and the Black-Scholes ratios as well. Any of these criteria that are listed in the parameter field, you can view in the results page. And to do that, what we simply have to do is click the See More or Less Columns button above the listed results page. And this will take us to a configuration page. All of the available filters that were listed in that particular, in the parameter field for the Iron Condors are going to be available on this configuration page. So if I wanted to see the delta ratio, for example, between the puts and the calls, or the implied volatility ratios, you simply check the boxes of the data that we wish to view in our field, even if I want to see the range out of the money for the puts and calls, or the probability above just for the short put or just for the short call. Just check the boxes next to the values you wish to view on your results table. Then we'll click Save and Return. And this will ask us to go ahead and close the window to refresh the page. We'll just simply resend. And this will reload the information for us. Our trades will still show up, but now those criteria that we selected will be available there on the screen. All right, so there we go. There's our available delta ratios that we selected to be used between the puts and the calls. Okay, so just with one simple click, you can customize, of course, not only the search criteria, but also the results table and the data viewed in the results table of what you want to specifically see when analyzing your Iron Condors. Okay, thank you, Mike, for pointing that out. I haven't been looking at the questions there. I'm just letting you and Greg handle them, and just let me know when you have anything else that you want to view. All right. Now,
Sure, no problem.
Okay, now, last step, as I mentioned, what we want to do now is I take my NASDAQ position, and I'm going to add it to the portfolio. Now, my portfolio here, I have several other portfolios created for different presentations. What we want to do now is we're going to track this from the search screen. We're going to add it to our Iron Condors portfolio that we've created, and we'll simply click Insert. Now, all 4 of the option legs are going to be transferred over for us. It's going to select today's transaction date as well. I could adjust that if I wanted to. All I have to do is select the number of contracts to keep things simple today. We're just going to select a number of contracts, 1 apiece. Since this is just a paper trade, I'm going to put in my and price is after you've gotten filled, if you put in a limit order, which Mike Phillips suggests and discusses in that Iron Condor book there, you can just go ahead and put in the different prices. Let's say this only cost me $2.50, and I was actually able to get $3 for this particular short put. Maybe I was able to get 90 cents for this short call and buy this one at 50. Just put in the values of what you entered the position as. Okay? And then once that's done, simply click the Submit button, and this is going to take us to the profit and loss portfolio where we're going to be able to track our open positions. Now once this is in the profit and loss portfolio, we're going to have, let me open that full screen for everyone and let me scroll down a little bit. Here is the position. Okay, hold on one second, ladies and gentlemen. As I was linking over to the portfolio, I just noticed there was a small problem. I'm going to transfer computers real quick, so just give me 1 second. I apologize for this. I'll be right there. Okay, I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. I just have to get something set here and be ready to go. Okay, I apologize for that. Had a small lockup with the Citrix technology that we were using. Let me get back into our profit and loss portfolio here, and we can show the main screen. So let me just make sure I've got everything selected here. Okay, and let's see what we're viewing here. We're getting that up? There we go. Okay. So, now we're available to look at the profit and loss chart here. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to... There we go. That's a better adjustment. I apologize for that. Okay. So, here we are. We're looking at the portfolio here. The NASDAQ position is entered here, so we can see all 4 legs individually. We're showing the gain and the loss over here on the right-hand side for our positions, the changes that just basic today. And also down at the bottom of the portfolio, you have a submenu that shows you the subtotal of the total net credit, what the liquidation value would be right now, and the total gain or loss in the position if you closed it. You notice I have some other positions entered here onto our portfolio screen. We have a position here for a weekly SPX index that we've recently opened. And we see that our total net credit was about 535. And if we liquidated right now, it would cost 390. So we do have a current gain on this weekly position on SPX. But something's different here, isn't it? We have these views available. We have these red highlights available showing us in the alerts column that certain alerts have been triggered. And this is also available on the Goldman Sachs position that we entered, simulated entering back on April 5th, 2010. Now, why this is important is because on this portfolio screen, in the profit and loss portfolio, you can set the various alerts based on what you want to see. Now, for this particular trades, this SPX trade that we have, if I click on View, this will tell me which position, which alert has been triggered. Now, one of the alerts we discussed in presentation part 1 and part 2, or I should say one of the triggers that we use at Power Options Applied when we want to adjust a position is if the stock or the underlying security reaches within 1 or 1.5% of our short put or short call strike price. This happens to be the case with this particular weekly position on SPX. As you notice, it tells us that the stock is currently trading at about 1,209.50, which is greater than 102.63, and that triggered the automatic limit. This is an automatic limit that was placed to notify us if we reached within 1.5% of the short put or the short call strike price. You can set a variety of different alerts as well. In addition to setting your own personal stock price limit, or the stock percentage change, for example, or change in the option bid price or the ask price. If you want it to be notified if your position was in 5 days or 4 days to expiration, for example, you can select that as well. Down below, we also have some filters for the fundamental and technical ranges. You can set one on each leg. I should have mentioned that. I apologize. You can set an alert for each leg, the buy contract or the sell contract, and also for things such as the simple moving average, lower or upper Bollinger Band, or be notified if your underlying security or index hit a new 52-week high or a new 52-week low, for example. Okay, so you can set the different alerts based on what you want to see. Okay. Now let me just go back here. We'll take a look at our portfolio page again. So now an alert has been triggered. What does that mean? Well, this might mean I want to look at some potential adjustments on my Iron Condor position. And to do that, actually, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. What I want to do here is at this point, let me just ask another last poll, I promise, and I would like to know, how do you calculate your adjustments on your Iron Condor positions? Do you use a basic option chain again, pencil, paper, and calculator? Do you use a stylus, papyrus, or wax tablet and an abacus? Does your broker offer basic adjustment tools? Do you use, again, your Excel spreadsheet or other tools to analyze that position? Or do you wait till you are near expiration and then simply just adjust before the closing?
Looks like we have a few Bacchus users.
I'm sorry about that. I had unmuted the screen, but the headset itself had automatically muted for me. That was interesting. I apologize. All right, so we have 28% using the basic option chain. 2% are using a stylus, papyrus wax tablet. 34% of you are using your broker's adjustment tools. 15% use the Excel, and 21% wait to near expiration and adjust before that. Let me see here. All right, so let me go ahead and hide those results. And let's go ahead and go back to the portfolio screen. Now what we like to do is we have our alert set on SPX there. And what I want to do now is simply with one click, I'm going to go to the position actions and then the position analysis screen. Now this is going to give me a basic overview of what my original entry price was, where my position stands right now, and it's going to calculate for me potential adjustments or rollout opportunities based on the information in the Iron Condor text. So we open up the screen, we see how we have our original position, and here's our profit and loss for the SPX position, our original net credit of 535, our original maximum risk of 1965, and as I scroll down to the bottom, now we see that we have some potential adjustments. Now, since the stock has threatened, one side has threatened the short call strike price, we may want to consider just liquidating the bear call side of the spread. So our liquidation value, we originally collected a credit of 535. If we liquidated the position, it would be cost us $3.30. So our new total net credit would be about $2.05. Now if we want to simulate what this would look like, we simply go into Simulate Trade. And what we're shown here now is over on the left-hand side. We have the original value in red. This was the original position. Our current return, if we liquidated right now, is 1.9%. The maximum, of course, if the stock stays or the security stays between our strike prices, would be 12%. But then over on the right, we can see what would happen if we closed just the bear call side because we didn't want to suffer a larger loss. We would take the original Iron Condor profit and loss chart here in red and change that to the new profit and loss chart. We're basically just leaving the bull put open. We did lower our return, of course, but if the stock continues to move up, we're not at risk of getting threatened for a loss on the bear call side that is currently being threatened. One of the other adjustments that's possible, let me go ahead and close that. You see here that we have listed that SPX has now moved within 1% of our short call again. If we have an extended time frame and still available on the position and we think that SPX might continue to move up, one of the potential adjustments discussed in the Iron Condor book is to close the short call but leave the long call open. So we pay about $360 to close this short call. This would take our net credit that we originally had down to $175, but we see that we do have a new infinite return. Now, that's interesting. How does that happen? Well, let's again go ahead and simulate the trade, and let's take a look. So with just one click, we're able to evaluate, okay, the difference between closing the whole bear call side of the spread and what that would have looked like, or just closing the short call now, reducing the profit again, but since we're leaving the long call open, we'd end up with this new profit and loss chart. The red is the initial position, our initial Iron Condor, and then if we look at the blue, this is what our new position would look like if we bought to close the short call and left the long call open. So this can give you, based on what you think is going to happen next, what your conditions and your expectations are for the particular position, you can evaluate the adjustments here that are discussed in the Iron Condor book graphically and monetarily with just one click. Now another potential adjustment that can be done is that we could potentially roll the entire Iron Condor. So if we just decided now that our April position, our April weekly position is being threatened, and we potentially want to view what it would look like if we liquidated the whole position and then opened a whole new Iron Condor, which has to match some default criteria we have in the background that's discussed in the book, then, okay, we'll just run that simulation as well. Go ahead and click on Simulate Trade New. And this again will give us that original position over on the left-hand corner in red, what the position looks like as it's being threatened, and then over on the right, we can see the new graphical interpretation of what our new Iron Condor would look like. Now, in this particular adjustment, you see that we do not have the special margin listed because the strike prices are different. So this wouldn't apply. Special margin, excuse me, wouldn't apply to this adjustment because the strikes are different. One of the other positions that I had in the profit and loss portfolio there that I wanted to take a look at, I had mentioned a little while ago, was of course the Goldman Sachs position. Now just real quick review on this one, and then we'll wrap up the presentation because I know we've gone a little bit over time here. The Goldman Sachs position was opened on April 5th, and at the time we looked at a position where we could sell the 160 put, buy the 155, and at the same time sell the 185 call and buy the 190. Well, as we all know, because of the SEC movement, Goldman Sachs has now dropped down to 158. It had about a 20-25 point drop a few days ago. Well, this makes this Iron Condor particularly risky, but the alert has been triggered. And as we can see here in our summary, if I liquidated the position right now, we'd have a small loss on the position here, a loss of about $86 on the position. But if I go to the analysis screen and view the potential adjustments or the potential rollout opportunities, there may be a possibility where I could liquidate this current Iron Condor, which is at a loss, and then find a new Iron Condor that would give me a profitable return, still having an 85 or 75% greater probability. So we scroll down here, take a look at our original position. We'll scroll down to the bottom and look at the rollout opportunities. And we want to look at adjustment number 3, roll the entire Condor to a new position. We can liquidate our current position for a small loss, and then we're shown opportunities where we could turn that loss into a potential gain. And we're shown here what our new net credit would be for the new Iron Condor, the total adjusted net credit, which includes the liquidation value from the current Iron Condor, what we originally received, our new potential percentage return, and the probability. And once again, if I wanted to view the rollout opportunity graphically, for the more information menu, we'll just go to Simulate Trade New. And this again will give us that breakdown where over on the left, in the red corner here, there's our original position. We currently have a loss of 10.4%. And we see here that the stock price is now below our strike price. So yes, we could still make a 21% return on this position if and only if the stock goes back in this range between the 160 short put strike price and the 185 short call. By making the adjustment and rolling the position, what we see now is that we could change this to a maximum percentage return of 7.1%, and as we showed on the last screen, rolling out from these May strikes to the new May strikes, we still have about a 68 or 69% probability of ending in this range and taking a 7.1% return where on a position that currently has a 10.4% loss. So you can run your evaluations, your adjustments here to find out which positions might best match your new risk reward after you've triggered one of those alerts when one of your short puts or your short call positions is being threatened. So that is how we like to track our positions using the Power Options portfolio tools. You can see very quickly run the comparison between your current gain or loss or what the gain or loss might be at expiration, viewing the gain and return as a summary rather than trying to analyze between each individual leg. And then once you've triggered your alerts, you'll be able to link over to this analysis screen and view potential rollout opportunities that might be able to turn a current loss on an Iron Condor into a potential profit, or follow some of the adjustments that are discussed in the Iron Condor book. And this is in addition to those patented search tools which help you narrow down the entire universe of Iron Condor positions to find only those ones that match your specific risk-reward tolerance, and then with one click, just do your further research and analysis and be able to run your what-if scenarios. These tools are a great time saver. They're going to help you greatly save time and help you save money with the management tools that are available. With the management tools that are available in the portfolio tools. And this is why we feel every Iron Condor investor should be using these power options tools for their Iron Condor strategies. And the patented search that you can customize not only the search but the screen view, as Mike Phillips had me show, the tools to compare the risk and reward, run your what-if scenarios, basically with just one click. You've got the powerful portfolio tools for tracking the Iron Condor positions, evaluating where they stand, and the ability to analyze and simulate potential adjustments with just one click. Right, now the subscription services, Mike?
I had a requester wanted to know if you could do a little presentation of the backtest tool. Would you have time for that?
We're already 5 or 10 minutes over, but I will show you one thing. I don't know if it's on Iron Condors, but it does specifically list to that. On the Power Options screen, but you can also access this if you're not a current trial member or a subscriber. In the Learning Center, from the main home tab, if you go into Learning Center and click on Webinars, there's a listing here. You can also just go to the URL at the top, www.powerop.com/webinars.asp. That is a public page. From the archive, if you click on the Power Options Tools Archive, there's a full hour presentation on using the Power Options historical suite of tools right there. You can view it on YouTube, you can view it as a Flash document, and I am almost, now that I think about it, I'm almost positive that I go over using those historical suite of tools for the Iron Condor. And of course, to access the historical suite of tools, once you're in the Iron Condor tab, you can just click on the back testing, and then you'll be able to select if you want to use the historical search, so you can use the different criteria to identify historically just positions that would have matched your specific risk-reward tolerance, or look historically using the search by symbol. But back on that screen in the webinar archive, remember, Power Options Tools Archive, historical suite of tools is a whole hour-long presentation just on the historical suite of tools. That's the best place to go. Okay. All right, going back, speaking of the historical suite of tools, the Power Options subscription services, the general 20-minute delayed service gives you access to all the tools on the tool menu in all 23 different strategies, is $59.95 per month with a discounted rate of $600 per year. So you're basically paying for 10 months but getting 12 months of service. The real time is $79.90 per month or a discounted rate of $800 per year. Now, the historical data is not included on the standard 20-minute delayed or the real-time subscription. You can get a 3-month access to the historical suite of tools for $99.95. Or if you're already on the real-time, it's actually cheaper just to upgrade to our professional level of service. So rather than paying roughly $33 per month, going from the real-time at $79.90 to the professional at $99.99. Excuse me. This gives you access to all the tools on the real-time and the availability of the real-time data, plus unlimited access to the historical suite of tools. And again, of course, you get a great discount if you pay for the year. It's only $1,000 for the year, so you're basically paying for 10 months but receiving 12 months of service. Okay? So these are very, very low fees for all of the availability and the functionality that you have with those patented search screens, whether in 20-minute delayed or real-time, the one-click analysis, the powerful tools in the portfolio to track and manage your positions, and then, of course, simulating the trades. Now, the Iron Condor book, as we mentioned, that discusses the fundamentals and the principles that we briefly touched upon today that Mike Phillips uses to trade his Iron Condor positions at Power Options Applied. The book, of course, is available at Power Options and Power Options Applied. It's $19.95 plus about $3.95 shipping and handling. But we also have a special offer right now for customers who are currently not members of Power Options Applied. And Mike, did you want to discuss that a little bit for me?
Sorry, I was busy answering questions. What's the question?
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to know if you wanted to talk about the book and half-price deal that we have available right now for new customers to Power Options Applied that might be interested in purchasing the Iron Condor book.
Oh, yeah. It was a really nice deal for those, for new subscribers to Power Options Applied. They can get the book plus half price to our Optimum newsletter. Since this is the first month, and then of course after that we would customers be billed at the regular rate. But it's a really nice way to get the book and the newsletter and see how we service operates.
Okay, fantastic. And yeah, as you mentioned, this is a really great deal. The first month of the Optium for half price. This is, at the time that the book was purchased, I believe it was showing about a 79% return over the last 12 months, and right now it's still at around 75% or so over the last 12 months. Is that correct?
I was busy answering questions again.
Okay. All right. Well, that's okay. Yeah, so the Optium, I'll just go ahead. The Optium trade folio there is the one that really had a strong return. And, of course, you can view those returns of the different trade folios and their specifics, at Power Options Applied. And let me discuss now, while Mike's answering questions, I won't bug him again. But our sister service at Power Options Applied allows you to follow the experts. The Optium trade folio, this is the Iron Condor trade folio. It's about $99.95 per month. But again, if you're a new member to Power Options Applied, there is that special offer there where you can get the book plus the first month at a 50% discounted rate to view the trades that Mike Phillips is making with the Optium Iron Condor portfolio. There's a Chromium trade folio that does Iron Condors, but Mike will actually make an adjustment about midway through the position. This is not as aggressive as the Optium. It has a slightly lower return than he's normally looking for. And this portfolio is about $89.95 per month, and of course a discounted rate for the yearly access. For those of you who might be looking more into double diagonals, the variation of Iron Condors that is discussed in the Iron Condor book, the Quantium service does double diagonals. It's about $70 per month, and of course you still get the discounted rate. And for those of you that are still maybe just looking at covered calls and maybe a little collars with an extra protection, Mike has the Titanium covered call trade folio and the Palladium covered call. Of course, you can view all of the performance, I should say, of each of these individual trade folios at poweroptionsapplied.com. Now, if you might think that, hey, I might want to access all of these different portfolios, but that looks pretty expensive, well, that's why we offer Power Options Applied Plus down here at the bottom. Power Options Applied Plus is a huge discount. It gives you access to all of the trades in the 5 available trade folios at Power Options Applied for a really low cost of only $179.95 per month. And then, of course, you also get that great discounted rate, and a very high discounted rate for the annual subscription. And Plus gives you access to all of these winning portfolios at a very discounted rate. And, of course, you know, the whole point of this is that for those of you that don't have the time to be self-directed, for example, using the Power Options tools, this is where you'd want to go. Check out the Power Options Applied service and take a look at the Optium or Chromium, or maybe even the Quantium there. These are the positions, the trade folios there, where we do the work for you. We pick the trades and manage the positions. So if you're not ready to be self-directed, then you can go ahead and take a look at Power Options Applied there. What's listed in the book is applied daily over at those services. All right. Well, Mike and Greg have been going through the questions. I still think we're going to be open here for a couple more minutes, so a lot more questions. I know I've gone over time. I'm really sorry for that, with that technical issue we had there. We did have a lot of information to cover. But at any time you have any questions, please feel free to email us to support@powerop.com. You can also call us toll-free at 877-992-7971. That's toll-free inside the continental U.S. Or you can reach us at 302-992-7971 if you live outside the continental United States. And of course, there are contact links available on every Power Options and Power Options Applied page as well. All right. Well, as I mentioned, I know Greg and Mike have been answering questions there. If you have questions, please feel free to send them in. We're going to stay open for a little bit longer. And if Mike or Greg, if you have any questions that you want me to address, just go ahead and let me know, and I'll try to scroll through some of these and help you guys out. But if you guys think you've answered all the questions, we're not having any new questions come in, just let me know, and we can go ahead and wrap things up as well.
I think we're good, Mike.
Okay. Well, I think Mike and Greg have amazingly gotten through all the questions, and I'm sure you all who asked questions got a lot of useful information out of them. Mike, again, is the head analyst at Power Options Applied, so when you have just questions specifically about Iron Condor strategies or techniques, he's really the best guy to use. But if you've best guy to ask, excuse me. But if you have questions about using the Power Options tools, to how to set up the search, the backtest, for example, or using the different analysis, you just give me a call and you let me know as well. Of course, we're all available to answer any questions that you have. Thank you again for joining us. This presentation, of course, was archived, will be recorded. We're going to hope to have it up probably within the next, by Monday early morning, so part 3 of our Iron Condor presentation will be available. Thank you again for joining us. We hope to see you guys real soon at one of our next strategy presentations that we'll be hosting. And look for those available on the main Power Options page, and we'll also probably send you guys an email letting you know what's coming up. Take care, everyone. Have a fantastic week. Happy trading. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.